Hello Planeswalkers! Andrew here, bringing you the Froggy King himself, Grolnok, the Omnivore. Grolnok is a 3/3 legendary frog for 4 mana, who mills you for 3 whenever one of your frogs attacks. Whenever a permanent is put into your grave from your library, you exile it with a Croak counter on it, and as long as you control Grolnok, you can play those exiled permanents with Croak counters on them from exile. I could have made this a highly optimized self-mill deck, but instead, I made it half self-mill and half frogs! So, some might say that frogs are suboptimal, and they may be right, but we're going to ignore them because frogs are awesome and they can mill you with Grolnok. Anorid Bark Ripper has Threshold, +2/+2. Anorid Scavenger has protection from black, and on your upkeep you sack it unless you put a card from your grave on the bottom of your deck. Anorids are God's mistake and should have been wiped out, and the fact that Urza never did is another example of how Urza is a terrible person. Or was, rather. Bloated Toad, on the other hand, is simply a bloated toad. It has protection from blue and cycling too. Burog Befuddler is a little frog wizard with flash, and when it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-0 for the turn. Whenever Chub Toad is involved in a block, it gets +2/+2 for the turn. Croaking Counterpart copies a non-frog creature, except it's a 1/1 frog. It also has flashback. Croconura has Reach and Evolve. Eliwick Tumblestrum doesn't necessarily help your strategies in this deck, but she does have the cutest frickin' frog on her shoulder, and it's good enough for me. On the exact opposite of the cute spectrum is Excavating Anorid, who lets you sack a land on entry, and if you do, you draw one. It also has Threshold, +1/+1, and Vigilance. Also, to be fair, it looks a lot better than the older Anorids. Forgimeth has Trample and Haste, and whenever it hits a player, you exile up to that many target cards from their grave, and put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature exiled this way, and gain 1 life for each non-creature exiled this way. I need to run this in a D&D campaign sometime. Big ass frog. Frogmite has affinity for artifacts. Galloping Lizrog is disturbing to look at, and has trample, and when it enters, you can remove any number of +1/+1 counters from your other creatures and put twice that many on the Lizrog. Haze Frog has flash and prevents all combat damage other creatures would deal this turn when it enters. Jade Avenger has Bushido 2, and is one of my absolute favorites. Leapfrog has flying as long as you've cast an instant or sorcery this turn. Omnibian can be tapped to turn a creature into a 3/3 frog for the turn. Plexcaster Frogling has Graft 3, and you can pay 2 to have target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it gain Shroud for the turn. Species Scourger has you return a creature you control to its owner's hand on your upkeep, the cost of keeping it on the field. Spore Frog can be sacked to prevent all combat damage for the turn. Trollbred Guardian has Adapt 2, and each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has Trample. Finally, Whiptongue Frog can be paid into to gain flying for the turn. Now, on to Self-Mill, which isn't necessarily milling all the time, but they all put cards into your grave directly from your library, which triggers Grolnok. Animal Magnetism has you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. An opponent chooses a creature from among them, you put that into play, and the rest into your grave. Cavalier of Thorns has Reach, and when it enters, reveal the top 5 of your deck. Put a land from among them onto the field, and the rest into your grave. And yes, this does trigger Grolnok. Magic Arena confirms it. When it dies, you can exile it and put another target card from your grave on top of your deck. Cephalid Vandal gets a Shred counter on your upkeep, then mills you for cards equal to the number of Shred counters on it. This is one of the few times a Cephalid has ever done anything useful in the history of the game. Epiphany at the Drownyard is an X cost that has you reveal the top X+1 cards of your deck and split them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one, and you put the chosen pile into your hand and the rest into your grave. Fact or Fiction does the same thing, but with a static 5 cards. Hermit Druid can be tapped to reveal cards at the top of your deck until you reveal a basic land. Put it into your hand and the rest into your grave. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and Labman both win you the game if you deck yourself out. Milliken can be tapped to mill one and add a colorless. Realms Uncharted searches up 4 lands with different names, and opponent chooses 2 of them. You put the chosen cards into your grave and the others into your hand. Slogurk, the Overslime, has Trample, and whenever a land goes into your grave from anywhere, it gets a +1/+1 counter. and since lands go to your grave before Grolnok exiles them, they still trigger Slogurk. You can remove 3 +1/+1 counters from it to return it to its owner's hand. When it leaves the field, return up to 3 target lands from your grave to your hand. Now on to support, starting with Clear the Mind, which has target player shuffle their grave into their deck and draw 1, which is meant to help in case you mill yourself too far without Grolnok. Destiny Spinner is here mainly to make your creatures and enchantment spells uncounterable. Ice Fang Twaddle has Flash and Flying. When it enters, you draw 1, and it has Death Touch as long as you control at least 3 other snow permanents. Icon of Ancestry makes your frogs bigger. Konda's Banner can only go on a legendary creature and gives your creatures that share a color and creatures that share a type with the equipped creature +1/+1. Leyline of Anticipation lets you cast spells with Flash. Masquid Nexus gives all your creatures every creature type, which makes your non-frogs into frogs. Spark Double can copy a creature. Vanquisher's Banner gives your frogs +1/+1. Whisper Silk Cloak gives the equipped creature Shroud and Unblockable. Now on to Defense, starting with Frogify, which enchants a creature and turns it into a 1/1 frog with no abilities. Heroic Intervention gives your permanents hexproof and indestructible for the turn. Incubation Incongruity, this is totally the first take, can grab you a creature off the top 5 cards of your deck, or exile a creature and replace it with a 3/3 frog lizard. Gross and Grip destroys an artifact or enchantment and has split second. Lightning Greaves gives haste and shroud. Mercurial Transformation turns target non-land permanent into either a 1/1 vanilla frog or a 4/4 vanilla octopus. Merfolk Trickster has Flash, and when it enters, you can tap target creature an opponent controls and remove its abilities for the turn. Mystic Snake has Flash, and when it enters, counter target spell. Polymorphous Jess turns all creatures target player controls into 1/1 vanilla frogs. Rapid Hybridization destroys a creature and replaces it with a 3/3 frog lizard. Slippery Bogbonder has Flash and Hexproof, and when it enters, put a Hexproof counter on another creature. Then move any number of counters from among your creatures to that creature. Subtlety has Flash and Flying, and when it enters, you choose target creature or planeswalker spell, and it is not at all subtle. Then its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their deck, and you can evoke it by exiling a blue card from your hand. Turn to Frog turns a creature into a 1/1 vanilla frog for the turn. Vendilion Click has Flash and Flying, and when it enters, look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from it, they reveal it, and put it on the bottom of their library. Then draw 1. Now for Ramp, we have Chromatic Lantern, which lets your lands tap for any color. Farseek lets you grab a plains, island, swamp, or mountain. Growth Spiral lets you draw 1 and put a land from your hand onto the field. Once Upon a Time can be cast for free if it's your first spell of the game. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and reveal a creature or land from among them, add it to your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck. Path of Discovery has your creatures explore on entry. Rampant Growth searches up a basic land and puts it on the field tapped. Sucker Tribe Elder can be sacked to search up a basic land. Soul Ring is Soul Ring. 3 Visits searches up a forest and puts it into play tapped. Finally, for your land base, you've got Bark Channel Pathway, Command Tower, Dreamroot Cascade, Rejuvenating Springs, Yavimaya Coast, and Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. You've also got 14 each of snow-covered forests and islands. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing. Leave a comment letting us know what you think below. And remember, it's okay to be gay, even if you're a frog. Have a great day, y'all.